Hello. I wanted to come on here and make a little video about my experience with the EVO ICL procedure and kind of what led me to decide to do it and what the recovery has been, what the preparation has been, and the procedure and all that. So let me start with just a little bit about my background. So I have been, I was first diagnosed with nearsightedness when I was 5 years old in preschool. I still remember when I failed the eye exam, they pulled me out of class to come and talked. I think my mom was there to talk to the doctor or talk to the nurse or whoever. And then at that point, I remember going to the eye doctor and getting my first pair of glasses when I was, preschool, 5 years old-ish. And since then, I've always needed glasses and my vision just kind of got worse and worse. I needed new glasses. And then finally, when I was 12, is when I got my first set of contacts. And that was the best thing ever because I didn't have to wear glasses all the time and I could just see during the day. And it was great. And that's how I've lived for the 20 years since I got contacts. It's just been contacts during the day, glasses in kind of the early morning, late evening. But it's always been a dream of mine to be able to just wake up and be able to see the alarm clock, or if I get up to go to the bathroom at 2 a.m., what time is it? Just be able to see it without having to, hold my phone up to like right here to see what's going on. Now, for reference for my prescription, my glasses prescription was about a negative 12.5. In contacts, my contact prescription was about negative 9.5, negative 10. So I've had pretty severe nearsightedness. Luckily, very, very low astigmatism. So that's just a little bit of background on me. Anyway, so for the last several years, I've been going to my eye doctor and I've asked, okay, are there any procedures that I could get done so that I would be able to see? Obviously, LASIK or PRK was the main one. And unfortunately, those only correct probably about, -7, -8, somewhere in there. So I could get it done, but I would still need glasses or contacts. So for me, it was, okay, well, if I'm still going to need it, what's the point? And I remember the first time they told me that, I was just devastated because I was just like, well, there goes my dream of never being able to see when I wake up. And it was truly just sad. Because even, just beyond that, whenever I travel internationally for work a few times a year. And, just packing for that is an extra pain, having to take extra contact solution, having to take contacts, having to take glasses in a case that's always too bulky. Just a lot of extra things that just lead to more work and just a little worry. It's like, okay, am I going to be able to wash my hands to put my contacts in? And you just never know. Anyway, so this year my eye doctor retired kind of the end of last year. So I went to a new eye doctor in January, typical eye appointment, and talked to her. And she said, well, we actually have a new procedure that was just approved by the FDA in 2022 called EVO ICL. And that's where they have an implantable contact lens where they kind of go in, make a tiny incision, insert the lens, and that's it. And so that one was really, really intriguing. I said, oh, so can it fix people with my severe nearsightedness? And they said, absolutely, it can even do much worse. So got real excited and I scheduled an appointment with the surgeon for a couple weeks later. So then towards the end of January, I went in and talked to the surgeon and they said, yep, took a bunch of scans on my eyes and they said, yep, you'd be a really good candidate for EVO ICL. It's just a small implantable contact lens. It looks similar to a contact lens, but it kind of has some extra wings off to the side that they can tuck in. So I went and did the pre-op assessment, I guess, where they took scans, they talked me through the process. And essentially what they told me is, okay, so you'll just go in, we'll order the exact lenses you need. And then we'll go in and make a tiny 1 millimeter incision. And they fold up the little lens like a burrito, stick it in, and then kind of unfold it. And then they tuck it under the colored part of my eye. So you can't see it, but when you're looking at an eye, the lens is actually sitting underneath the colored part and in front of the black part of my eye. So they kind of stick it in there and it tucks under the edges. So it kind of works with my natural eye and it sits in front of my natural lens. So they didn't have to do anything to my regular lens. So anyway, so I went to the initial appointments and then, my surgery was actually yesterday, February 27th. 2 days before that, they had me start taking these prescription eye drops I have. and it's kind of a compounded custom solution that is part anti-inflammatory and part antibiotic. And I have to take that 4 times a day. It doesn't really burn, it just feels like eye drops. And then in between that, they wanted me to have some lubricating drops that I take. So started that 2 days before, and then the day of the surgery, my surgery was at 2 p.m. They didn't want me to eat or drink anything because they do use conscious sedation, or they do use some anesthesia. So woke up, I have a couple meds that I just took first thing in the morning, but then didn't eat or drink anything. And then they had me show up about 1, and that's when I started getting really nervous and really anxious because they're going to go cut into my eyeball, and that really freaks me out a whole bunch. So I went in about 1, signed some paperwork saying, yep, I agree that they're going to cut into my face. It's all good. Signed, yes, I agree they're doing both eyes, whatnot. And then they took me back into a pre-op room, and that's where they had a kind of a nurse assistant come in, give me some coveralls. I didn't have to change into total, surgery gear, I guess. I just wore pants or soft pants and a t-shirt. Then she gave me that, and then the actual nurse comes in and she kind of walks me through what the procedure is going to be. I was feeling pretty anxious just because, how do you not? The part that freaked me out was more different than LASIK is they were actually going into my eye. They make an incision and go into my eyeball versus LASIK, it's more on the surface that they're doing things. So she was really nice. She gave me some Valium, which just made me kind of take the edge off and make me feel less anxious. As well as some Zofran, because the change in eye pressure can make you feel nauseous for the first little while. So I took that, then they came and put put an IV in my arm that they would use during the surgery. And then they had a nurse anesthetist come in, and he walked me through kind of what they were going to give me during the procedure. So once I get in, they were going to give me some ketamine, along with a couple other Toradol, I think it is, and some other drug. I'm not entirely sure. But that was just really to kind of keep me calm and keep me, they wanted to keep me conscious because I had to move my eyes a couple times during the procedure, but just really take the stress out of it. And it worked really well. Anyway, so they came in, got me all the details, got me prepped. The doctor came in and just told me again what we were doing and just wanted to reassure me that, hey, I've got you. We're going to do everything here. It's going to be really quick. The procedure was about 15 minutes per eye. So I had both done on the same day. So we went in and he's like, it'll be like 15 minutes. And then we kind of reset up and do the other side in about another 15 minutes. So you'll be in the surgery, the operating room for maybe 45 minutes as, all said and done. So then a few minutes later, they take me back. I walk and I just, was able to get up and walk feeling fine. Get into the surgery room. And then that's where it was kind of a blur of things started happening. So I sit down, they asked me my name, my date of birth. I took off my glasses for the last time, which was just kind of weird to think about. I was just kind of like, okay, cool, here you go. And at that point, when they laid me back, he hooked in the IV, and I just started feeling really calm at that point. Again, I was still aware of my surroundings, but just kind of chilled out. And then from there, it was just kind of a flurry of things. They put this big drape over my whole head. They put a cover over the one eye they were not starting with. So they started with my right eye, so they covered my left eye. They put in about 1 billion drops, it felt like. Some things that burned initially because they were betadine, I think it was. In addition to some numbing drops and all sorts of who knows what. Then I had to shut my eye and they just covered it in betadine or iodine or something as well, I'm sure. And then at that point, the drugs really kind of kicked in and I didn't feel a whole lot else. But I know they put in a clamp to kind of keep my eye open. And that's when they turned off the lights and I just saw this kind of bright light. And it was, I can't quite describe it. It was the closest thing is I was looking into a kaleidoscope is kind of the closest thing I could say is what it was. Because it had these 3 lights and they were kind of turning different colors. And then I heard the doctor's voice and he said, okay, you're going to feel some pressure. And I didn't feel anything. It just kind of felt weird, like people were just pushing on my eye in weird ways. But what was going on is he was making a small 1 millimeter incision, and then he has the tool that inserts the lens, and then he had a little kind of tool that goes in and he can unfold it, tuck it under the eye. And some of the things that he was telling me is, he had me look down, look up a little bit just so he could make sure he was all positioned good and just adjust the lens slightly. And then after they did that, they had to flush out the wound. I don't know where the incision was. I know they had to flush it out a few times to make sure they got any sort of, antibacterial out of there, just get everything out. And that felt really weird because it looked like, as I was looking at my eye, it felt like my eye was drowning in fluid is the only way I could describe it. And I just felt like I could just see water going past the inside of my eye, which was really bizarre. But during the actual procedure, I didn't feel anything. When he was inside of my eye, I just saw what I thought was a kaleidoscope, weird things moving. I can't quite put into words what it looked like. So then they said, okay, yep, you're good. You're done with that one, which it was much quicker than I thought it was going to be. I guess it was like 10, 15 minutes, but felt super quick. And so then they put kind of a plastic covering over that eye and then moved on. There was a couple minutes in between. I started feeling anxious again, so I just kind of said, hey, I'm starting to get kind of nervous again. And the nurse just grabbed my hand and said, okay, we'll take care of you. And I think he pushed more meds because I started feeling good again. And then they did the same thing to the other eye. So, same process, 1 billion drops, cleaned the outside of my eye, and then just kind of went forward and did the exact same thing. And then when it was all over, they had put coverings over my eye. They had me try to open my eyes, which I did, and everything was just really bright because I'd had my eyes closed and everything just kind of hurt. One of the interesting things that they said very clearly you're going to feel is you're going to feel like a brain freeze or an ice cream headache that you get kind of right here in the front part of your head or there. And what's caused that is at the end of the procedure, they have to give you these drops that constrict your pupils again. So it's kind of forcing those muscles to close your pupil because they want to make sure that it kind of it's pushing the lens in the correct spot and you're holding the lens down, I guess. But anyway, that caused some really kind of uncomfortable pain. So it just felt like I had a constant brain freeze that would never go away. So that was probably the worst pain, honestly, I felt during that was just kind of the recovery. So anyway, I started feeling that pretty quick. I was able to walk back to the room where I just kind of sat in the same pre-op, post-op room for probably 15 minutes, just while I kind of came back to normal. They gave me instructions for what I do after the procedure, and just kind of made sure that I was good. I was able to stand. I was able to just respond and be normal. So then probably after that, then I went downstairs, which is where they do a lot of their LASIK procedures, I guess. But I went downstairs, and that's where the doctor came and met with me again, and he wanted to do the first post-op check. So that's where you get the big machine. If you go to the eye doctor, you put your chin in it, and the bright light goes in your eyes, and you're like, whoa, that hurts because it's so bright. But he said it all looks really good. The lenses were in the correct position. It was vaulting correctly over the lens. And he also did a pressure test because one of the biggest things to worry about with this type of procedure is increased pressure in your eye. But my pressures were in a really good range, in a very safe, normal range for this. So that was all good. So then he just, again, gave me some instructions. So things like I can shower, but just don't get any water on my face for the next couple days. No hot tubbing or swimming for the next month. And just, nothing, no lifting really heavy objects for the next week, no exercising for the next week, nothing that will kind of stress out the body, I guess. I don't know. And then other than that, though, the restrictions were I just have to wear those plastic shields at night so that I don't inadvertently rub my eyes. I can't rub my eyes or anything, which is hard because it just they feel dry and scratchy a little bit. It feels like there's almost a hair in my eye, which there's not. It's just from the little incision. And the incision, there's no stitches. Like, it's so small they don't even need stitches or anything, which is really nice. So anyway, it's just I can't rub my eyes, and I need to take my prescription drops 4 times a day, and then in between that, take all the lubricating drops I want, to make myself feel comfortable. So I've got some of the, refresh drops that I take every hour or two, just to help my eyes feel less scratchy. But other than that, recovery is technically, day after. So today you can drive, you can go to work if you want, you can do whatever you need to. But the biggest things that I'm seeing now is it's just a little blurry is not the word, it's like foggy almost, and that's totally normal. He says that takes probably about a week to go away. So they say the day after surgery, you'll probably have 80% of your vision back. After another week or so, you're up to 90, and then it kind of slowly goes up from there. So the biggest things that I'm seeing today are, like I said, it's just a little foggy. It's not blurry, but it's just foggy, I guess. And I'm also seeing quite a few halos, especially if I go into the light just right, I'll see these big halos in my eyes, which is very normal. That should go away within, it can take up to a month, but usually within a week or two, those go away as your brain just adjusts to the lenses. But other than that, I haven't been in any pain other than just the ice cream headache I had yesterday. And I have noticed a little bit of just soreness, I guess, as I went from bed into the bathroom where I turned the light on and it was bright, and your eyes kind of have to adjust. That was a little painful or a little sore because I think the muscles were just sore, I'm guessing. So anyway, that's really it. That's been my process so far. No major pain. I was able to see my alarm clock this morning and I got a little emotional and I called my mom and just was so excited because I've never been able to just wake up and see. And it's just so exciting. Even now, I'm able to see my phone just fine. I'm able to see things across the room. And I keep thinking, it's just because I've got contacts in. But I think it'll kind of keep hitting me as I do things where it's like, oh, wait, no, there's nothing in my eye. I can just see. So overall, 10 out of 10 so far. I'm really glad I did it. I'm really grateful that I was in a position that I could do it. And I'm just so happy that I can just see. I know it's probably not a big deal to people who can just see. It's like, just contacts will fix it, which it does. But just having to reach for your glasses all the time gets really old, and I'm just so excited. Anyway, if you have other questions, just let me know, but I thought I wanted to share that. Thanks.